You played with things that would get a whole store shut down today. The slip and slide came out of a box thin as paper. You'd roll it out in the backyard, the yellow plastic catching the sun, already hot to the touch before you even turned the water on. Somebody would turn the hose on, and you'd wait for it to get slick enough, water pooling in the middle, running off the sides into the grass. Then you'd run, feet pounding the grass, and throw yourself down. The plastic would tear your skin if you hit it wrong, if you landed on a dry spot. You'd slide crooked, hit the grass at the end, get up with your knees scraped raw and do it again. Nobody checked if the ground was level first. Nobody moved the rocks. Lawn darts were heavy in your hand, real weight. Metal tips sharp enough that you knew not to play around, knew what would happen if you did. You'd stand back in the yard, grass under your feet, hold it like a spear and throw it high. Watch it arc through the air, spinning slightly, and stick in the ground with a thud you could feel. Sometimes it'd land near somebody's foot and everybody would freeze for a second, looking at how close it was. Then y'all would laugh it off and keep playing, stepping around the ones already stuck in the grass. Your mama would be inside, and you knew not to tell her how close that last one got. The clackers were two hard acrylic balls on a string. You'd hold the middle and swing them up and down, trying to get them to clack together fast, the sound echoing off the side of the house. The faster you went, the louder it got. Your wrist would start hurting after a while, but you'd keep going, trying to get that rhythm, trying to beat your record. Sometimes they'd crack, just split right open while you were using them, no warning. Pieces would fly off, hit the ground, roll under the porch. You'd pick up what was left and keep it in your pocket anyway, the broken half still attached to the string. Easy bake oven sat on the counter, that light bulb inside heating up until you could feel it on your face when you leaned close to check. You'd mix the little packets of cake mix with water in the tiny pan, thick batter barely filling it halfway, slide it in with that long metal tool. The smell of it baking was real, but small, concentrated. You'd wait forever, checking every few minutes, watching through the plastic window that would fog up from the heat. When you pulled it out, the pan would be hot enough to burn you if you grabbed wrong, if you forgot and touched the metal edge. You learned fast. Chemistry sets came in metal cases with actual chemicals inside, little bottles with labels you couldn't quite read, ingredients you didn't know how to pronounce. The instructions would tell you to mix things, heat things, watch things change color or bubble up. You'd set it up on the kitchen table while your mama was at work, hoping to finish before she got home and asked what that smell was. The vinegar and baking soda volcano was safe, the one you'd show her. The other experiments, the ones you made up yourself, would leave stains on the table that wouldn't come out, dark spots that stayed, and nobody sued nobody. The creepy crawlers machine would heat up until the metal glowed orange in the dim light of your room. You'd pour the plastic goop into the molds, watching it settle into the grooves, wait for it to cook. The smell was chemical, thick, something burning that probably shouldn't be burning, hanging in the air like a warning. You'd peel the rubber bugs out when they were done, still warm, still soft, stretchy. Sometimes you'd touch the machine by accident while reaching for a mold. The burn would blister up red and angry. You'd run cold water over it at the sink and not tell nobody because you knew you weren't supposed to touch it in the first place. Roller skates clamped onto your shoes with a key you wore on a string around your neck. Metal wheels on metal plates that would loosen if you didn't check them. No padding, no helmet, no wrist guards, no knee pads. You'd tighten them as much as you could and take off down the sidewalk, legs pumping. Every crack would rattle through your whole body, shaking your teeth. If you hit a rock, you were going down. No question. Hands out, knees hitting concrete, skin tearing open. You'd get up, check the damage, wipe the blood on your shirt, and keep skating. Blood on your knee, dirt in the cut. You'd wash it out with the hose when you got home, water stinging. The super ball bounced higher than your house if you threw it right. You'd throw it down on the sidewalk hard as you could, and it'd rocket straight up, disappearing for a second against the sky before it came back down. Sometimes it'd bounce into the street. You'd chase it without looking both ways, watching the ball, not the cars. The ball was small, dense, hard as a rock. If it hit you in the face, you'd see stars, taste blood in your mouth. If it went over the fence into Mr. Johnson's yard, you'd have to decide if it was worth climbing over to get it back. Usually it wasn't. Metal swing sets stood in the backyard, legs sinking into the dirt from years of use. Bolts rusted, metal warm in the sun. The chains were rusty, leaving orange stains on your hands. The seats were hard plastic or metal that burned you in summer. You'd swing as high as you could, leaning back, pumping your legs, watching the ground get farther away. The whole frame would start to lift off the ground on the back swing, one leg coming up, then another. You could feel it tipping. You'd jump off at the highest point, flying through the air for a second, hitting the ground hard. Sometimes you'd land right, rolling. Sometimes you wouldn't. BB guns got wrapped up under the tree with your name on the tag. You'd unwrap it Christmas morning, and your daddy would take you out back that same day to show you how to load it, how to pump it, how to aim down the sight. The BBs were small, copper-colored, rolling around in your palm like ball bearings. You'd shoot at cans lined up on the fence, trying to knock them off. The sound was sharp, metal hitting metal, ringing out. One time you shot at a bird on the wire and missed. One time you didn't miss. You buried it in the yard behind the shed and didn't tell nobody. You kept shooting at cans after that. Just cans. The Whammo slip and slide commercial showed kids sliding smooth into a pool at the end, perfect and safe. Yours ended in grass. Dry grass and dirt. You'd slide so fast you couldn't stop yourself, hit the end going full speed, and tumble into the dirt. Your cousin broke his arm that way, heard it snap, just landed wrong, wrist bent back. Y'all kept using it the rest of the summer, though. You'd just aim better. Try to stop before the end, digging your heels in. It didn't always work, but you tried. Moon shoes were trampolines strapped to your feet with thick rubber bands, heavy springs and metal bands that pinched. You'd put them on sitting in the driveway, stand up slow, and try to jump. The springs would bounce you up a few inches, maybe 6 if you were lucky, and you'd come down crooked, ankle rolling. You'd catch yourself against the car, adjust your weight, try again. You never got as high as the commercial promised, the kids floating through the air. Mostly, you just fell a lot. The springs would pinch your skin if you stepped wrong, leaving red marks. You kept playing anyway. The Battlestar Galactica Colonial Viper had missiles that actually launched. Little red plastic missiles that shot out hard when you pressed the button. They'd fly across the room, hit the wall, hit your brother in the back of the head. Y'all would have missile wars, hiding behind the couch, shooting them at each other across the living room. One got lost in the heating vent, rattling around down there. One went out the window, and you never saw it again. Your mama took the last one after it hit her in the back while she was cooking dinner. You kept the ship on your shelf, but it wasn't the same without the missiles. Metal slides at the playground would get so hot in the summer you could smell your skin cooking when you went down. That burned smell. You'd climb up the ladder anyway, rungs hot under your hands, sit at the top deciding if you were really going to do it. Then you'd push off, the metal burning through your shorts, your thighs, the backs of your legs, searing. You'd hit the bottom and jump off quick, hopping around, checking to see if you got burned. Usually you did. Red marks across your thighs. You'd go back up and do it again an hour later when it cooled down some. Slime came in a little trash can with a lid you'd pop off. Green, wet, cold when you first pulled it out, thick and sticky. It'd make that sucking sound when you stretched it, air bubbles popping. You'd play with it until it got warm from your hands, until it picked up dirt and hair and crumbs from the carpet, little specks suspended inside. It'd dry out eventually, turn hard, crack into pieces. You'd leave it somewhere and forget about it. Your mama would find it weeks later, stuck to something it wasn't supposed to be stuck to, dried out and crusty. The big wheel had a plastic body and wheels that sparked when you went fast enough on concrete. You'd ride it down the hill, pedaling hard as you could, leaning into the turns, low to the ground. The front wheel would start to shimmy when you got going too fast, wobbling. You couldn't really steer at that speed. Just hold on. You'd just aim and hope. Close your eyes halfway down. Sometimes you'd tip over. The plastic would scrape against the concrete, and you'd slide with it. plastic burning against your skin, road rash up your arm, your hip, your knee. You'd walk the big wheel back up the hill and do it again. Jarts were the lawn darts that actually got banned. The real ones. The ones with the weighted metal tips that could go through a board. You'd throw them underhand in the backyard, watching them flip end over end through the air. They'd stick in the grass, in the dirt, in the tree trunk if you threw wrong and hit it. Your uncle got hit in the leg once at the family reunion. Not bad, just grazed him, tore his pants. He pulled it out, checked the spot, threw it back at you. Y'all kept playing. Nobody told your grandma what happened. The wood-burning kit came with a hot pen that you'd plug into the wall. It'd heat up until the tip glowed orange, cherry red. You'd press it against wood and it'd burn a line, smoke rising up thin and gray, the smell of burning wood filling the room, getting in your nose. Sometimes you'd test it on other things to see what would happen. Plastic would melt, bubble up, fabric would catch, a little flame starting. You learned what not to touch it to. Usually you learned after it was too late, after the damage was done. Cap guns were loud, sharp bangs that echoed down the block. You'd load the red paper strip of caps, close the chamber, and pull the trigger. The bang would echo off the houses. The smell of gunpowder would hang in the air around you, sulfur and smoke. Sometimes you'd skip the gun and just hit the whole roll of caps with a rock. They'd all go off at once, one long explosion. Your ears would ring for an hour. Your fingers would smell like smoke the rest of the day, that metallic smell. The original pogo stick was all metal, with a hard rubber tip that would wear down. No padding on the handles, just bare metal. You'd grip it tight, put your feet on the pegs, and try to bounce. The first few times you'd fall off immediately, hitting the ground. Eventually you'd get a rhythm, up and down. You'd bounce down the sidewalk, the metal creaking and squeaking, your hands hurting from holding on so tight. If you lost your balance, you'd go down hard, fast. The pogo stick would land on top of you sometimes, metal bar hitting your ribs, and you got back up. Sky dancers would launch into the air when you pulled the string on the base, spinning fast. Little plastic fairies with foam wings spinning so fast they'd blur. They'd go up 10 feet, hover for a second like magic, then come down wherever gravity took them. Sometimes they'd hit you in the face on the way down, foam edge catching your cheek. The edges of the foam were sharp if they caught you right. If they hit at the wrong angle, you'd launch them at each other across the yard, chase them into the street. One landed on the roof and stayed up there. You could see it for months. The swing wing was a ball on a rope attached to a plastic hoop you wore on your ankle. You'd swing your leg, and the ball would go around and around in a circle. You'd jump over it with your other foot every time it came around. The faster you went, the harder it was to control, the ball whipping around. The ball was heavy, hard plastic. If it hit your ankle bone, you'd have to stop and sit down for a minute, rocking. If it wrapped around your leg while you were jumping, you'd trip and fall forward, hands out. Slip and slide splash pool had a little inflatable pool at the end that was supposed to catch you, slow you down. It never had enough water in it, just a few inches. You'd slide fast, hit the pool, and your momentum would carry you right through to the other side. You'd slide out the other side into the grass, pool tipping over. Somebody would have to reset it, fill it back up. Y'all would take turns sliding and resetting it. Eventually, you'd just skip the pool and aim for the grass from the start. It was easier that way. Those little metal cars with the sharp edges that you'd roll down, ramps you built. Hot Wheels, Matchbox, whatever you had in your collection. You'd build ramps out of books and boards, making them steeper. See how far you could make them fly through the air. They'd hit the wall, leave dents and black marks. Hit your foot if you weren't paying attention, corner cutting in. The metal edges were sharp enough to cut you if you grabbed wrong. If you picked one up fast, you'd collect them anyway. Line them up on your shelf by color. The more beat up they were, the more you'd played with them. The Fisher-Price toys with the hard plastic edges, corners sharp enough to hurt. No soft corners, no safety warnings, no recalls. You'd throw them across the room and they'd survive, bouncing off the wall. Drop them on your foot and you'd feel it for days, bruise coming up purple. Your little brother would put the small pieces in his mouth, choking hazard right there. Your mama would dig them out with her finger. Nobody thought about choking hazards back then. The toys were solid, heavy. They lasted forever. They'd hurt you before they'd break. And somehow you made it. You remember which ones you had, which ones you wanted that Christmas, which ones your cousin got and you didn't. You remember thinking it was all normal, that everybody played like this. If you're still here, you know what I'm talking about. You've got the scars to prove it. That's all this is. Just remembering what we survived. Drop a comment if you had any of these. Tell me which one almost got you.